gender-based violence is not going to fix itself. It never will. It's not just going to go away. And so see if there's a problem that you are frustrated by and you think this is so unjust, I would say go out there and do something about it. We can't wait for the world to change.
During her childhood, the women in Natalie Jobe's life have shown her how to be confident and how to best use her voice when speaking up for herself and others. She now uses these strengths to address gender-based discrimination and violence through her work with local government and education systems. Thank you for joining Lynn Foley, host of Remarkable Women, Powerful Stories, as we hear from Natalie about her journey.
One of the pivotal moments for me growing up was I was in about 5th grade and I was playing basketball with some boys in my class. And a boy in my class shoved me down during our physical education class. And I was so upset. And I went to my PE teacher and I said, "Hey, he just pushed me down. He should get in trouble for that." And his response, the teacher's response was, "Well, he just probably likes you. He probably has a crush on you. So that's why he pushed you down." And I was so confused and so frustrated by this experience. So when it came time for my mom to pick me up from school, I came out to the car crying. And that was not usual for me. I was not crying normally at all. So my mom asked me what had happened. I explained the situation to her. And instead of just leaving it how it was, she marched me back into the school and pulled my teacher aside and kind of went off on him and told him that he was teaching me that men being mean to me or boys being mean to me was something I deserved, or that was showing that they liked me. And that is not something she wanted to have modeled for me. And so after she was done explaining that and, kind of going off on my teacher, she stepped aside and said, "Okay, your turn, Natalie. What do you want to say?" And I was so shocked because that was the first time I've had, an authority figure in my life have to listen to me and what I felt and what I had to say. And so in that moment, my mom gave me my voice to speak up for myself and confront injustice in the world, even though it was just a small thing that happened in elementary school. I think it really was able to help me build off of that and empower me to speak out for myself and for others when things go wrong and when I notice that something isn't right. So that ever since then, I've been way more confident in what has happened to me and how to, take the next steps to combat those issues.
There's a little bit of a message in there potentially for parents listening to us today, isn't there, about not always having to fight the battle for their child. Like your mother did fight the battle to some extent, and then said, now it's like it's your battle, or it's your time. Battle mightn't be the right word. It's your time, or it's over to you now to also show how you feel. Yeah. So you think that was a much better way for you than if your mum had just done it on her own?
Yeah, I think it was helpful because she started off by modeling how to approach the situation for me, especially because at 12 years old, I don't think I would go on my own to talk to my teacher about that. So she kind of set the scene for me to be able to do that. And then it made me more confident in myself, knowing my mom was standing there, but she wanted me to speak up for myself. So it's kind of modeling the self-advocacy and how important that is to help children develop. And I think that was such a great example of how she was able to do that for me.
So did things change in your school as a result of that, or things change for you as a result of that?
Absolutely. Ever since then, my teacher never again said when a boy pushes me down, it's because he likes me. And also, I felt more comfortable approaching the administration of my school when things went wrong, because I think a lot of people are kind of or especially young girls, are taught to not do that. It's seen as snitching or being, it's embarrassing amongst your peers. But ever since then, when something went wrong or there was an injustice within my school, I felt more empowered to speak up for myself. And, you know, when boys misbehaved and they pushed someone down or they said something disrespectful, there was more likely to be consequences for that.
And also it's a response to bullying in a way, isn't it, or harassment, no matter what that incident or any other incident is. It generally would be read as some level of bullying or harassment, wouldn't it?
Absolutely.
And so therefore the way of approaching that, it made you stronger to speak up about it, because we always say in schools, I used to say it myself, you know, you need to speak up if you're being bullied and harassed, but the consequences in the peer group for speaking up are often override, don't they? Override the speaking up.
Well, to me, the boys in my class were like, "Oh, are you serious, Natalie? You went and talked to the teacher about it?" And they made me feel so bad for speaking up and sticking up for myself. And I think my mom also helped me through that, because she told me there was nothing to be ashamed of for knowing what I deserve. And I think it's reiterating that to young people, that you should know the respect and love you deserve from others. And so if someone's treating you in a not kind way, there's no shame in pointing that out and talking to people that can help fix that situation for you.
Because it might happen at 12 years old or 11, but it can grow, and that then becomes, potentially could become, the underpinnings of what that looks like as adults.
Absolutely.
And make it worse. So right now, I know you're fully immersed in study, and as you said a moment ago, you're about to start the new semester or the new academic year in Portland. How did you decide your original study pathway? Because you'll talk, I'm sure, about your community college days. And what work do you think you might do once you get through this next program at university?
In high school, I did mock trial, which was incredibly life-changing for me. So that's when I figured out my passion for law and politics, especially. So when I went into Portland Community College, I focused on political science, especially because in 2016, you know, there was a lot of tension within the United States with the previous election. And that kind of woke me up to what is happening in the world and how politics impacts everything in my life. So I became really passionate about that, and I decided to study it at Portland Community College. And then I just finished Portland Community College in last June. So now I'm starting at Portland State University, and I'm going to continue political science and pre-law, because I hope to in the future be involved in law in any type of realm. You know, law school is very tricky. You're going to figure out which path you want to go into. But I think I'm going to try to focus on prosecution or being a civil rights attorney, just because I'm really passionate about human rights and ensuring that everyone has access to those.
So with that as a segue into my next question, you've said, and I've read, that during high school and community college so far, and this is what caused you to win the Zonta International Young Women in Public Affairs Award recently. During this time, you've been really involved in and led a range of approaches to causes, including gender-based violence, period poverty, and you did some time as an intern in Oregon as well. Can you talk to us a little bit more about those experiences and the voice you have for advocacy?
Yes, absolutely. So I think it's all kind of began in my sophomore year of high school. I was elected as the president of the Intersectional Feminist Advocates. And in doing so, I recognized that period poverty was a huge issue in my community. A lot of young people were unable to access menstrual products, which is a huge barrier to attending school, because a lot of kids that menstruate are unable to go to school if they don't have the products or resources. So luckily in Oregon, there was this bill passed called House Bill 3294, which is the Menstrual Dignity Act. And it ensures that in every public school, menstrual products are available for free. Unfortunately, my high school was not in compliance with this bill at the time. So I took it upon myself to march down to the principal's office, knock on his door until he opened up and ask him to take a seat. And I spoke to him about the importance of dismantling period poverty in our community and how it was disproportionately impacting students, especially young women, and how access to education is so, so vital. So luckily, the day after that, we had dispensers with free menstrual products. And seeing that active advocacy go right into action was so important to me. And I realized that my voice for activism could do so much good in my community and the world in general. So then I discovered my real passion for dismantling domestic violence. So for my senior project, I reached out to the Oregon Community Foundation, which is a group for philanthropy. And they offer grants to students that are doing projects. So I applied and they gave me a $5,000 grant, where I then allocated the funds to local domestic violence shelters. So they were able to, have more beds in those shelters. Because a big problem in domestic violence shelters is not having enough room for the survivors that come in. And unfortunately, sometimes they're supposed or unable to take them in because of the lack of room. So they were able to expand that in my local community, which was so rewarding and so great to hear that we are helping survivors. And then I contacted senators and representatives within my state and talked about how we need to strengthen restraining orders pertaining to firearms in domestic violence situations, and what they're currently doing on those matters. And so through being involved in this, I then wanted to take it a step further. And so then I interned under Representative Reynolds at the Oregon State Capitol, where we focused on expanding reproductive rights as well as strengthening firearm legislation. So through House Bill 2005A and House Bill 2002, we helped expand gender affirming care and reproductive rights within Oregon, as well as, not allowing firearms in public places, because that's a big problem for just domestic violence. If there's a firearm in the situation, the likelihood of a fatality in a domestic violence situation goes up by like 200%, which is something we really want to avoid in these situations. So I worked in the Judiciary Committee, and I was able to learn a lot and make connections, and it just fueled my passion even more.
So what is it about working with gender-based violence that is so important to you? And what do you think we all need to do more of to, as you say, reduce the impact of gender-based violence? Like, we'd like to eradicate it and have it not happen at all, but let's go with reducing it at this point. What do you think else we have to do? So why is it so important? And then what else do you think all of us need to do?
I think it's so important because it impacts so many people's lives. It's kind of a silent issue in a lot of ways because a lot of survivors have a lot of shame surrounding what has happened to them. And so it's an issue that I feel like kind of goes under the rug a lot of the times, and no one really pays attention to it until it's right in your face and it's impacting someone that you love or impacting you. And I think it's also an issue that it doesn't discriminate. Anyone can become a victim of gender-based violence and intimate partner violence. It transcends every single, area in the world, and it impacts every single community. And that's why I became so passionate about it. Is there was people in my life directly impacted by gender-based violence, and through seeing the effects on their mental health, their physical well-being, every area in their life, it made me want to fight this so much more. And so through seeing that firsthand, I think what we need to do in the future to continue to combat this issue is to have a cultural shift surrounding gender-based violence. So being more outspoken about how it's impacting our communities, allowing survivors a platform where they can speak up about what has happened to them, and then also educating people on how gender-based violence and gender-based discrimination and sexism actually feeds into perpetuating gender-based violence. I really strongly feel that our culture perpetuates this issue, especially in the United States. And so by educating people on how that our culture shapes how many people are impacted by this issue, and how we can diminish that is really important to me, as well as, like I said, legislation. So important. In Oregon,
Yes.
actually, we don't have charges against specifically domestic violence. We don't have a crime of domestic violence within Oregon. Instead, it's assault, and then you would mention to the judge with domestic violence. And so one of my goals is to actually make sure there's a charge for domestic violence within Oregon, and it has stronger protections regarding restraining orders, because I don't think it's enough just to mention assault with domestic violence involved. I think there should be an individual charge of domestic violence.
And a lot of jurisdictions, well, I'm not familiar with all of the states of the US, but particularly like Australia, there are all sorts of laws coming into play. Do you think that it's broadly understood that domestic violence isn't necessarily always just physical assault? Like we hear a lot about domestic gender-based violence, that is assault, basically, where a woman or a man is being assaulted, being hurt physically. Do you think there's enough understanding from potential perpetrators and victims and society generally about coercive control, emotional and psychological violence as well? What do you think as a younger woman in this space, Natalie?
In my personal experience, last May, I was admitted into the emergency room at St. Vincent Medical Center because of the psychological effects of gender-based violence. For me, I had been in a relationship which was incredibly controlling. I was isolated from my family and friends. I hadn't seen my family in months. He would do things like intentionally harm himself or make me feel like I was in control of his actions, even trying to crash his vehicle because I had made him upset. And at the time, none of it, he never had hit me. So I didn't think that it was domestic violence. I didn't think it could be intimate partner violence until I reached such a breaking point where I was unable to eat. I was unable to sleep. I didn't know what was happening to me. I was having panic attacks, and that was so unlike me. So I called my parents. I asked them to pick me up, to help me. And eventually I had to go to the emergency room because we did not know what was going on with me, because I was unable to have a solid grasp of reality. And so eventually I was admitted into an intensive outpatient program that I completed in June. And through this program, I was able to learn that what had happened to me was intimate partner violence. Just because it wasn't physical did not mean that it's not intimate partner violence, because there was financial abuse involved, there was emotional abuse involved. And I didn't realize that the psychological effects of intimate partner violence could be so life-changing, because truly it put my life on halt. I didn't understand what was happening. It was so confusing, and I felt so weak and betrayed and out of control in my life. So I think by going through that personally, I understand that domestic violence is so much bigger than the physical sides of it. Because before, that's what I worked with. I thought it was purely sexual assault and physical violence against an intimate partner. But now I'm so much more aware of, narcissistic tendencies and controlling behaviors, and how, breaking someone's self-esteem down is a sign of intimate partner violence, and isolation is a sign of, domestic violence. And you need to be so much more aware of that. So now it just fueled me even more of, we need to combat those issues too. And, the awareness of it.
And it's the awareness. It feels to me like the awareness. It starts with awareness, and then
Absolutely.
it starts with knowing it's wrong, secondly. And then thirdly, it's how do we all work together? And it's not just women's work, I guess. It's men and women together make the changes. And that can be tricky, because sometimes it might feel as though it's women's work to make the change. I don't know whether you feel that, but sometimes that's what I hear from people, and I might think myself, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I think a lot of the times, because women tend to be mostly impacted by domestic violence, people see it as a woman's responsibility to combat the issue. But I take it from the completely opposite side of, majority of the perpetrators of domestic violence are men. So I think it is a male community issue that needs to be resolved in their community. And that doesn't mean that women are not involved. I think by sharing our stories and saying, this is how it impacts us, and it doesn't discriminate, it happens to men too. So how can we all work together to address this issue within the male community? And I think it's been really productive for me personally, because of the experience I've had. My little brother, he's 18 years old. He's a pretty stereotypical teenage boy, but through seeing what I went through, seeing how it completely transformed my life and stopped me from being able to pursue so many opportunities. He, even now, when people use gender-based language, so there's like words that are inherently sexist, I hear my little brother going, hey, that's gendered language. And I think that's so impactful, because it's even just such a small thing, but coming from a young man who's aware of these things and pointing it out and saying, hey guys, we shouldn't do that, I think it's beginning to transform his community. And I think there's a lot of young men today that see how, gender-based violence impacts people they love, and that they can do something about it. And it's finding that voice of, oh, I have the opportunity and I am empowered to speak out and help others. I should take that on. And I think that's been really, really successful for my little brother. And it's been really rewarding to see how he's been able to do that in his own life.
So, Natalie, thank you so much for sharing that story, because that story is a very personal one. And it seems to me that you've worked your way through that now, and you're looking forward to, the future and your study and everything. But I thank you. It's a very brave thing to do, to share your story with us here on the podcast and video. So I do thank you for choosing to do that, so that other people hear how it affects individuals of all ages too. It's not, it is there, and it's a big effect, and we help to build awareness. I'm wondering about the fact that you've been studying Spanish, just to change the topic, and you've had the opportunities to travel through, some family connections. So can you talk to us a little bit about travel and your perspectives, and studying a language, and what that's adding to you as a woman?
So my older sister lived in Spain for a while in 2022, and I had the opportunity to go visit her. And that was the first time I had ever traveled outside of the country. And I had been learning Spanish since I was in kindergarten. So I felt pretty confident in my abilities to navigate, this new country, and try to learn as much as I can about the culture. And it was completely life-changing. When I went there, I just saw a completely new way of life and how people interact with one another. And I think it helped me understand that even though we're in such different parts of the world, people are more similar than we are different. Even though we have different cultures and different backgrounds and live in completely different countries, people are kind. Kindness is everywhere. And I think learning about culture has been really informative too, because I'm allowed the opportunity to talk and connect with new people. I think language is so important. And in fact, I'm traveling to Colombia in South America in December of this year. And I'm really excited because my sister's living there now, and the cultures are just so different. And in where I live in Hillsborough, there's a large Spanish speaking population. So I think by being able to utilize language as a tool to connect and understand people, it allows me to, advocate for a larger population, and just hear more stories, because I think being able to connect with others, it allows you to build community. And I think that's something we really need to focus on in the world right now, is building community. I think that was lost during the pandemic. And so I think by utilizing and trying to learn as much as you can about other people's cultures, you're able to build more tight-knit communities and connections.
That's lovely. Have you currently or had role models in your life, particularly those that inspire you to keep on with your study or inspire you through the issues that you faced last year personally, and your volunteering work to get to those hopes and dreams? So who might be those role model or moral models right now or in the past?
I think I have, oh my gosh, there's so many role models throughout my life. I would say primarily right now, my mom is my biggest role model. She was with me throughout everything I had experienced. Like there was times I was unable to shower by myself. I wasn't able to function as a normal human when I was going through the effects of gender-based violence. And so my mom being able to help guide me and be the strength I needed in those moments, I think it was so impactful. And seeing how love from a mom to a child, the strength of that, and how it can empower someone to pick up the pieces of, horrible situations someone's going through. That's the strength I want to have in my life. And if I have children or not, I want to be able to be the person to be the pillar when other people are going through horrible situations. And so I think that's why I want to get involved in, law and prosecution. So when there are victims of domestic violence or gender-based violence, I can be the person to help guide them through those horrible times in their lives, like my mom was able to do for me. And so she really inspired me through that. And also my two big sisters, they're both so driven. They have completely different aspirations, but I think they have, the same undertones of wanting to make impacts in the world and be able to explore as much as they can, and really make a difference. They're both very outspoken, and they want to shed light on things that typically are not talked about. So my sister is a Fulbright scholar, and she's in Colombia right now, and she's focusing on language. And that really has empowered me to continue trying to learn as much as I can about the world and to develop my skills in Spanish. And then my other sister is pursuing her master's degree in education and wants to help adults in custody be able to access education. And I think that's really impactful. Being able to help so many people from so many different backgrounds. And I think that's what all of us girls are very passionate about doing. So
that's a great thing. And no doubt it's rubbing off on your little brother, as you described him as
Absolutely.
Well. You've shown to me throughout our conversation today the amount of confidence and strong voice you have, even through some of the most difficult times that a woman can go through. I'm wondering what advice you would give to others, whether they are at your stage of life or my stage of life, about developing that level of confidence and self-esteem to have that voice about things we're passionate about. What sort of advice or wisdom would you share?
would just say to surround yourself with people that uplift you and support you. I think having a strong support system is so essential. And also recognizing what you deserve. I think there's a lot of young women in the world right now who don't have confidence in themselves because it's kind of broken down from them through societal expectations and how you're raised. And I think by being able to focus on yourself and build that back up and recognize I'm the only person that lives with me in the world. Like I'm going to carry myself throughout life. I can't depend on someone else to do that for me. And I think that's both scary and also very empowering because recognizing, wow, I don't have anyone else who is going to carry me throughout life, who is going to be me. I have to do it myself. I think that allows people to open their eyes and see what they deserve and build opportunities for themselves. And also being the change that you want to see in the world. You know, gender-based violence is not going to fix itself. It never will. It's not just going to go away. And so see if there's a problem that you are frustrated by and you think this is so unjust, I would say go out there and do something about it. We can't wait for the world to change. We need to change it ourselves. And I think there's so many young people in the world who feels the same way. And so it makes me very hopeful about the future.
Oh, I'm incredibly hopeful about the future. And if the future is in your hands and the hands of other young women and men like yourself, Natalie, I think we're in a really good place. And when you get to be that civil rights lawyer, I know that you will use your voice in a very empowering way. And Zonta in particular is very proud of you as an international winner of the Young Women in Public Affairs Award. And I'm hoping that's helping you continue to develop your voice and to do the things you want to do. In moving to close our lovely conversation today, what do you think are your greatest leadership gifts? Because you're already a powerful leader and a woman with a powerful story. So leadership gifts, what do you think your greatest gift is right now?
I think my greatest gift is my anger. I feel like that's a pretty unconventional answer, but I think to be a strong leader, you need to be able to utilize your feelings. And I think anger is one of the most useful feelings a person can experience because I think it empowers us to strive for change. Through using my anger, it has allowed me to become more passionate and more driven and determined. And so I think by feeling and experiencing the, obstacles and barriers that specifically women have experienced in life and recognizing how that impacts my life and my opportunity, the anger that I have experienced has allowed me to become a leader because I want to lead us out of that and, make a change. So I think by using anger, it can be very transformative and helpful in the world. So I would also encourage any person who has been called angry or has been told they have too much rage, do something with that too. It is really helpful.
Use that rage or anger and outrage in a positive way to make a difference rather than in a negative way, is perhaps what you're saying as well.
Absolutely. Yes, yes.
What a great message for all of us to hear, and taking that confidence and courage to speak up and just use our voice like you have learnt to do already. So thank you so much, Natalie, for our conversation today and agreeing to be a guest on this series. Zonta International thanks you, and can I wish you well in this next stage of your studies at Portland State University, about to start next week. And I know that you'll fulfill your dreams, whatever they happen to be along the way. So thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you.